Hey guys, welcome back to the Pausing Porn podcast. I'm Mark, and today it's time to clarify what is porn? Most of us think we know what porn is, but what if I told you that what counts as porn has changed more in the past 10 years than in the past 100? In this episode, I want to challenge the way you define porn, because your personal definition might be the reason you keep relapsing. Let's get right into it. If I went back in time 60 years ago and asked someone what is porn, they probably could have come up with a pretty simple answer for me. Porn would have included porn magazines, like Playboy or Hustler, or films that were shown in theaters. Accessing porn was limited back then and far less anonymous, because you'd either have to go to the theater to watch it, or you have to leave your home to go purchase a magazine at the store. It's safe to say it is much different now. Not only can anyone access porn anonymously at any time that they choose, but porn extends far beyond videos and magazines. In this episode, I'll explore what is porn, how some content can be considered porn for some and not for others, and we'll also make a clear boundary on what porn is for you. First, I want to begin with the definition of porn. Not because you guys don't know what it is. Like, I'm sure you're well aware of what porn is. It is a porn addiction recovery podcast. But I want to share it because the definition went above and beyond of what I expected. So porn is defined as printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity intended to stimulate sexual excitement. All right. Do you notice some key words that are used? The first thing I noticed is that they state it's printed or visual material. I feel this limits the definition of pornography because there are some types of porn, in my opinion, that go beyond this. But the main point that stuck with me is that it's the description or display of sexual activity intended to cause sexual arousal. This means that the picture of a naked woman in your high school health class was not porn, even though you were still aroused by it, because there was no intent with that picture to cause arousal. Does that make sense? I want to include types of porn that would fit this direct definition of pornography. These are the more obvious ones that most of you guys would already assume should be naturally off limits in your recovery. So this would include website porn videos, OnlyFans type of content, erotic fiction, hentai, VR porn, AI porn, printed porn like magazines or books, campsites, and intimate images or videos from a partner. I would say these are all pretty common types of porn I think we can all agree is off limits for recovery. Some of them have been around for a while, but some of them are fairly new. I'll highlight AI porn because this is a very new one. When I was still watching pornography and in my addiction, which goes up to just a bit over a year ago, I honestly did not hear of it then. I'm sure it was around, like I feel like it's probably been around for years, but it didn't seem to be a popular thing. However, now when I go in recovery communities, there seems to be a lot of guys that are struggling with it. And I can see why. Like, from what I've heard, is you can get whatever you want created. You put in a prompt, and you can have that created. Rather than always searching for that specific scene or video, you can create it yourself with a prompt. I want to say though, guys, regardless on the type of porn that you are watching, I want to still remind you that it is porn at the end of the day. You don't have to look at it like it's separate or that you have 5 different addictions. You don't have to say you're addicted to porn, you're addicted to AI porn, VR porn, OnlyFans, or whatever it is. At the end of the day, it is a porn addiction. What you need to focus on is you have a porn addiction, and this is a porn addiction that you can and you will recover from. I want to include a section to go over non-obvious types of porn. These will be the types that don't necessarily fit the definition of pornography, but you may have an unhealthy relationship with these types of content. a relationship that mirrors pornography. I'll share some of mine so you can understand exactly what I mean. One that comes to mind for me is hookup dating apps. So let me ask you, do hookup dating apps fit the exact definition of porn? No. But in my story, I use certain apps in the same way that I use porn. I use these apps like an extension to pornography, which is clearly off limits for me. Another one is certain social media apps. So once again, does social media fit the definition of pornography that I shared earlier? Well, maybe some parts of social media platforms have pornography, but it's not accurate to say social media is pornography. But did I use some social media platforms compulsively in my addiction to seek out sexual arousal? Yes, I did. Obviously, not everyone uses the platforms the same way that I did, whether they're a porn addict or not. But I use some social media platforms in parallel with my addiction. So what I did is I recognized it and I put these platforms off limits. Does that make sense? I hope these examples got you thinking. Because I'm sure if your story is like mine and porn has been in your life for years, you've probably seen escalation firsthand. Sure, porn started just with porn, but it could have also branched out to non-porn types of channels that you should still consider as porn, given your relationship with them. A good test is to ask yourself, does it look like porn? Does it feel like porn? Does it act like porn? If so, then you can consider it porn. In my case, do I expect everyone to consider dating apps like Tinder pornography? No, not at all. But through my experience, Tinder acts like porn, it looks like porn, and it feels like porn. So to me, Tinder is porn. And porn is obviously off limits. So it's simple as that. I don't go on that app. I felt inspired to make today's topic because of the number of questions in recovery communities on what and what not people can do. I see endless questions like, can I keep my girlfriend's naked pictures? Can I watch sex scenes in movies? Can I listen to erotic audiobooks? To be honest, I genuinely feel a lot of guys want permission to walk on that line. Like, for example, the question about listening to erotic audiobooks comes up way more often than I would expect it to. And all I can think is why? Why tiptoe on that line of porn? Do erotic audiobooks fit the exact definition of pornography? No, I wouldn't say so. But does that mean that you should go and start listening to them just because it's technically not porn? No. If you truly want to gain a life free from porn, let's not look to cut corners and get away with compulsive behavior because something technically is not porn, or maybe you technically didn't relapse. If this is what you're doing, then you're focusing on the wrong thing. Or there's another question that I see all the time. People ask, after I recover, will I be able to watch porn again? Once again, why is this a question that comes up so much? Like, why are people focusing on it? I do have a pretty short answer for that question that comes from my opinion, but I'll avoid that one today. It just comes down to a lot of people are focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on how far you can push the limits rather than just focusing on gaining a life free from porn. Think about what you could achieve when you're free and when you're in charge of your life. How much different your life would be without compulsive urges, out of control binges, secrecy, shame, depression, brain fog, right? Like the list goes on. I'm telling you, a full recovery is so much more rewarding than the type where you're still halfway in and halfway out. All right, let's take a second and reflect on something. So you guys already know the obvious stuff that is off limits, like porn sites, explicit videos, cam pages. What I want you to do now is name the other things that hits the same circuits for you. If you've ever used something else to chase arousal or to relapse, even if it isn't technically porn, I want you to bring it to mind right now. I want you to ask yourself, does it look like porn? Does it feel like porn? Or does it act like porn? If the answer is yes, call it what it is. Make it part of the same boundary, which is off limits. Now, whatever it is, it will be unique to you. Maybe it's dating apps. Maybe it's certain social media apps. It could be erotic novels or R-rated movies. Whatever it is that you've seeked out in the past, I want you to label it today. Because when you name it, you stop giving it power. You can fold it into the same rule that you use for porn. And guys, when you make that clear line in the sand that goes across your entire porn addiction, labeling what is off limits as porn makes recovery a lot simpler. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in for today's episode of the Pausing Porn podcast. The reason I've made this podcast is to help as many guys as I can recover from porn addiction because I've been in your shoes before. When I was going through recovery, I felt helpless, alone, shameful, and powerless to pornography. I also felt that I didn't have the resources to gain a life free from porn. It's unfortunate because recovering from a porn addiction is not the same as breaking your arm, right? Like when you have a broken arm, you go to the hospital and there's a defined process from the diagnosis to a full recovery. But with porn addiction, there isn't that same support. So guys, that being said, I know how it feels. And I want to deliver as much support as I can to help as many of you recover from porn addiction. If you feel this podcast has helped in any way, please leave a review and a comment to let me know. That is it for this week, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.